Thanks for joining us today on Indivisible. I'm your host, John Stubbins. Welcome, America. Last night at the RNC, at the final night, it was just simply amazing. The whole week was amazing. Huge contrast, obviously, compared to the DNC the previous week. And, it was so wonderful. And, and then towards the end of the night, I started hearing some really weird sounds. And it turns out that my hunch was correct. There were protesters near the White House, obviously far enough away that they couldn't, intrude the grounds, thank God. But there were protesters that were blowing these, I don't even know what they're called, horn makers, if you will. You could hear them wheezing in the distance, and they were doing everything they could to create trouble and to interrupt the RNC and President Trump's big night. So it led to the question, we didn't see this at the DNC. You didn't see any Republicans or conservatives or Trump supporters out there disturbing what was happening at the DNC. And of course, we've seen lately under this ridiculously inept mayor, Muriel Bowser in Washington, D.C., that the way she runs her city, she's going to bow to these protesters who we know are rioters and BLM and Antifa and people that want to pretty much rush the White House and, kill our president. This is the kind of mindset that these people have. And so, Washington, D.C. right now is in trouble. Everything, you've got the White House, you've got the federal government there, and then everything else surrounding that is Washington, D.C., the city that's run by Muriel Bowser, right? And so what's going to happen with Washington, D.C.? Because right now, things aren't looking all that smooth. Well, my guest today is a part of that solution. Let me invite to the program Marya Pickering. Marya, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And Marya, I know that you're doing everything in your power and with your experience, with your background to make a difference, to bring change in Washington, D.C. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and what you want to bring to D.C.?
Well, yes, thank you for asking. I am currently the only Republican candidate for the at-large city council seat. And I am running because I think it's time for true diversity of opinion on the city council and for some prudent management. I am an immigrant and a refugee. My parents escaped the horrors of communism in Poland after World War II. And as a young student, I had the opportunity to travel to Poland when it was still in the grips of the evil empire. And trust me, socialism is not something we want to see in this country. I've been to Poland recently. 2 years ago, I went to my father's village to celebrate the end of World War I, in which my uncle was a fighter. He was a 17-year-old boy who went to fight for a country that was not on the map. I went back, and I had been back to Poland since, more recently, and it is now a prosperous, free country, but it's taken them 2 generations to get over the blight of communism. And so that's another reason why I'm running. We don't want to see that here. And we do want to see prudent management of our city and its resources. We have a really unique city. And in your introduction, you talked about last night's riots outside of the White House. Well, what most people who are not from here don't really think about and realize is that in addition to the federal buildings and the agencies and the mall and all the wonderful historic sites we have here, Washington is a city of real neighborhoods with real people who live here, who grow up here, who educate their children here.
Right.
Last weekend, I was in Ward 8, which is east of the river. We were doing a neighborhood cleanup. I live in American University Park, where we have American University up the street and a number of public schools and so forth. So we have real neighborhoods, each with their own character and each with their own set of circumstances and issues. And as I've been campaigning across the city, I've lived here most of my adult life, I'm aware of many of the concerns of the citizens, the real people who live here, including education, including the unresponsiveness of our mayor and city government to many local issues. And I can give you examples of those specific examples.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in just a second. One of the things when I actually put this interview in play and let everybody know about it, one of the things that I did was talk about that your family had escaped Poland, and I thought that was such an amazing story. I think the reason why I find that so interesting, my grandfather on my dad's side was in World War II. And he also was in the Korean War and Vietnam. But, so many Americans fought for freedom in World War II that, we went over there. We went over to Normandy. We stormed those beaches. We had men that sacrificed their lives.
Yes.
That lost great men, to defend this country, to fight for freedom, and to see people the way that they just kind of just shoo it away like a fly, like it means nothing. It makes my blood boil. And I didn't want to let that pass without mentioning that your journey, your family's journey, is quite significant. And you're right. Poland is a different country today. And thank God that it is, right?
Yeah.
But that wouldn't have happened without the United States.
That's true.
Without the sacrifice of our men that went over there and stormed those beaches at Normandy. Wouldn't have happened.
That's true. And as a matter of fact, both of my parents were Polish Army veterans and were present at the Battle of Monte Cassino, which a lot of people are not aware of. That was one of the last great battles 76 years ago in the southern front of Europe. And it was overshadowed by D-Day, which happened a couple of weeks later. But the Polish Army and my parents' unit were the ones that finally captured the grounds of Monte Cassino, which is an ancient Christian abbey in the middle of Italy in very difficult terrain. And when you go there and you come from the south and see the difficult terrain, you understand why Hannibal went north across the Alps with his it was difficult, as armies slog along the ground. It was a difficult fight. My parents fought for that. They had their uniforms when I was still a child, and their patch said, "We are fighting for a free Poland." And the Poles have fought for freedom for a long, long time. We had our heroes, General Kosciuszko and Casimir Pulaski, fought with George Washington for your freedom and ours, because they appreciated the promise of America and the gift of freedom. And so, freedom means a lot to me, the ability to vote, the ability to be free and to enjoy the personal freedoms and the economic freedoms that the United States offers us. So I'm very, very obviously passionate about that. It's personal to me because my parents and my uncle, my dad's older brother, fought in World War I. So we understand this. This makes very real Ronald Reagan's words about freedom never being more than one generation away from extinction.
That's right. And so many people that haven't fought for freedom, who haven't even, some of these people haven't even left their neighborhoods or their communities. All they do is complain and join the grievance industry and talk about what they're entitled to and what they don't have. And a lot of these people, they don't realize that there are people in other countries that don't have half the things that the American people do. Our people are so spoiled. They have no idea what it means not to be free. Okay. So because of that, they take freedom for granted. And that's why when you turn on the TV set right now and you see people out there rioting and burning and looting and, hurting other people and, knocking out elderly people as they walk by on their walkers, they have no respect for themselves. They have no respect for our country. They have no respect for freedom. And so I have zero sympathy for people like that, because in my family and in your family, we paid a price for freedom. It means something to us. By the way, everybody in the audience, I've got Marya's website scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Make sure that you go to her website, visit her website, help her campaign in any way that you can, whether it's volunteering, giving funds, helping her to advance and help the conservative voice in what has become an all Democratic run city in Washington, D.C. Marya, I know that there are so many things that are important to you. I know that, you wanted to talk about education. You started to go down that road. Do you want to dive into that? I know education's big. I know that caring for the homeless and our senior citizens is big. But let's start with education. Tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are, your plans are for education.
Well, my goal is to raise our public high school graduation rate from 62% to 90%. Okay, as an immigrant and a refugee, and again, I speak from personal experience, my parents lost everything. They lost everything when we came here. I grew up in a household without a TV. We didn't have a car. We didn't even have a landline until I was in high school. Okay, so we did not have a lot of resources. For my baby sister's 4th birthday, my mother couldn't afford a cake, so she bought a package of M&Ms and she put, the M&Ms in the shape of 4 on the plate. That was my sister's birthday cake. But my mother taught me. My parents were both fairly well educated. My mother was not a university graduate. My father was, but my mother said, whatever you learn in this life is yours, and no one can ever take that away from you. So I know from my own experience as an immigrant that education is everyone's ticket out of poverty. Okay, it worked for Frederick Douglass. I take people to Frederick Douglass's house across the river all the time, because I don't care what color you are, you cannot help but be inspired by the story of this man who didn't even know who his parents were. But he found out that if he could read and educate himself, he could do something constructive with his life. And that's a great role model for anybody. And I don't understand why in our public schools we aren't teaching people to emulate Frederick Douglass, who did something productive rather than something destructive.
Well, let me say something about that. The reason that that's happening is because if you start talking about Frederick Douglass, then you have to start talking about American history. And they're trying to sweep American history out of our schools, right?
That's very sad. Yes.
I mean, I had a story on the other day. I'm trying to remember if it was Wednesday's show or Monday's show. We discussed this out in LA. There are parents that are getting shocked. They've been asked to sign a waiver that they can't even watch their kids at home when they get on the laptop.
Well, I saw that.
And you want to know why that is? Because BLM has infiltrated the school and they're trying to set the curriculum.
I know. Yes.
This is insanity.
It is complete insanity. And what we see is Marxist influence, not only in our grammar schools, but in our colleges and universities as well. And I take that I take it very personally. If I had someone paying my bills, I would have homeschooled my daughter. And as it is, I was very much involved in her education. She's now a graduate engineer, but she also has a history degree because I'm her mom. Okay. And because this is very important to us, a country that doesn't know its history isn't going to have a future.
But this is why they're trying to keep Frederick Douglass out.
Well,
it's the reason.
It's very unfortunate because he's one of our hometown heroes. And think Frederick Douglass and people like Abraham Lincoln, again, another poor boy who didn't have access to a lot of resources, if these people could manage in times when they truly had serious disadvantages against them, what excuse is there for people today? We live in a city with one of the best public library systems in the country. All you have to do is stumble into the library, have a librarian help you with something. There is no door that cannot be opened. Dr. Carson spoke last night, and his story is also powerfully moving. His mother is not an educated woman, but she forced her children to read. My daughter in her class had the opportunity to meet him in person when they were in grammar school. And I recall she came home to me and she said, "Mom, we met this amazing man. He's a brain surgeon. And his mama made him read 3 books a week, and now he's a famous brain surgeon, and now he's serving in the administration." So again, education is everyone's ticket out of poverty, and we need to improve our education system. In the district, we spend more money per student than almost any other jurisdiction in the country. And yet we have woefully underperforming public schools. A 62% high school graduation rate is not something that I am proud of as a citizen. And I think everybody else should be hopping mad about this. Okay?
Yeah.
There is no excuse for it. And it's not, throwing more money is not the answer.
Well,
the answer is prudent management and giving people choices and making sure that the schools and the teachers are responsive to the parents and not to teachers' unions and special interests like these management companies that run some of our charter schools. All right, charter schools can be a good thing, but particularly east of the river here, we've got a charter school industry that, again, does not necessarily serve the students well. They get these fat contracts and they don't necessarily improve the students' grades as much as they should because they're management companies and they're not dedicated to teaching the students. You can teach students with limited resources if you have dedicated teachers. I know that, again, from my own experience.
My mom was a teacher. She retired about a year ago. I got to say this, I look at Baltimore, for instance. Baltimore's close to you.
Yes, it is.
Baltimore had 13 schools where not one student was proficient in English or math. Not one.
That's
okay.
Sad.
Out of 13 schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is absurd. And yet,
it is.
And yet they want to remove and they don't want to teach American history. It makes no sense. Okay.
There's no excuse for that.
They want to teach things to our kids that aren't even, they're not even akin to their own soil. Okay. So look, I understand your plight there. But I've got to insist that schools across the country, if you're not teaching American history, it's got to be brought back. And BLM and Antifa, they have no place in the classroom.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry. Absolutely. Well, we need to not only teach American history, but generally world history. People need to know, understand the context and understand that many of the problems that we encounter are problems that have been with other countries and other civilizations over the course of time. And yet the United States is the only country in the world that has managed to solve a lot of these problems much faster than anybody else. And that's because of the freedoms that we enjoy because of our Constitution and the economic system that we have here. Capitalism is the only system that allows people to become wealthy, to go from nothing. And again, we have stories. Dr. Carson, one of our local philanthropists,
Tim Scott.
Tim Scott, yes. David Rubenstein, who was a poor boy from Baltimore, who again got an education, worked hard, and became wealthy. So
look, I'm going to tell you something. People need to wake up because I'm going to tell you, these kids now, they don't even, a lot of them don't even believe, okay, that there was a Holocaust.
That's appalling. Well, they need to go to Poland and visit Auschwitz and,
Yeah.
and see, I mean, we grew up hearing stories from the original cast. My parents weren't there. My mother actually was in the Gulag in Russia. So
I'll tell you what, you want to know something that Nazi Germany and Hitler has in common with Democrat-run cities? They both, well, and it's more than both over here. It's a bunch of cities run by Democrats, but Hitler and the Democrats have in common that they defunded police.
That too is a very troubling trend. And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to work for a small business, a small woman-owned business in the security training space. And most of my background is in the defense industry. I've helped buy things in the defense industry, but with this small company, we had the opportunity to tour several training sites, including the Metropolitan Police training site over here across the river in Blue Plains. And our police are the best trained in the country, and that means they're the best trained in the world. And we have a really unique situation because we're not just a city like Baltimore, we're a city and a federal district, and we have, as is going on downtown today, we are the site of peaceful, we hope peaceful, public protests. People can come here from all over the country and walk up to the White House with their signs and express whatever their ideas are, hopefully in a peaceful way.
Yeah, but they're not doing it in a peaceful way, Marya.
No, they aren't. What I wanted to say about our police department was that they're in a unique situation because not only are they a metropolitan police department with neighborhoods like mine to take care of, but they also have to interact with other police entities that have different jurisdictions. For example, the Capitol Hill Police, the Park Police, the Uniformed Secret Service, the police forces that belong to the military. And for example, some years ago, we had a shooting at the Navy Yard, and I was a consultant at the time. I was sitting there. I wasn't there that week, but I had colleagues who were sitting in that space. And as a result of that, our former chief, Kathy Lanier, immediately revised the training of the Metropolitan Police Force to account for situations like that. And she also improved coordination with the other law enforcement entities here so that there is better process when something like this happens, because these situations are come as you are parties, and whoever is boots on the ground first obviously will be responding to that situation first. But there are authorities and jurisdictions that these various law enforcement agencies have. And so I know that our current police chief, our former chief, our Metropolitan Police Department, they're the best in the world. They are our hometown heroes, and they need to be fully funded and not defunded. They have a lot in their hands. Yes.
Yeah, and on top of that, let's take the handcuffs off of our police officers. Okay, let them do the job. If you're, let me ask you, and I pose this question to anyone because people sit back and armchair quarterback about what police should do or shouldn't do, or how much abuse they should or shouldn't take. Let me pose this question to you, because police officers don't get paid enough for this, in my opinion. If someone is standing there and pelting you with a brick in the head, should you just stand there and take it, or should you defend yourself? Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, we're losing police officers because Democrat-run cities have handcuffed our police officers so that they can't do their job. Okay?
This is true.
If someone is being violent or resisting arrest, I have no sympathy for that individual. None. Okay? If you cooperate with police and they come to arrest you, or if you've done something wrong and they want to detain you, if you cooperate, you're not going to have any problems.
That's true.
Okay?
Yes. Yeah, that's true, John.
I'm tired of this nonsense where we're making it hard for police just so that these rioters can get camera ops to make it look like police are bad. It's nonsense.
That is nonsense. Most of the police are fine people, and they should not be handcuffed. In fact, I believe our former president, Barack Obama, once said that if they bring a knife to a fight, we bring a gun. All right. So the police ought to be able to respond in kind and to enforce the law. Okay, we have had, since the rioting broke out after Memorial Day, our neighborhood, which is not far from a business district here on Upper Wisconsin Avenue, has had a rash of break-ins, thefts from cars, and they're using our high school students, who again are ignorant and uneducated, to put up these signs sympathetic to Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist organization. All right. And people don't know that. But I agree with you completely. Our police need to be fully funded, and they need to have the power to enforce the law and to be able to protect our citizens and to protect our city. And again, how does it honor anybody? How does it help anyone's life to destroy property?
They don't care.
Completely, this just doesn't make any sense at all. When we were cleaning up in Anacostia, there was this little patch of park in this cul-de-sac neighborhood, and we're picking up trash and broken bottles and stuff, and a young mother and her child are walking out the door, and I said to one of my fellow trash picker-uppers, who happened to be a Black guy, we looked at each other and we said, why didn't somebody just plant flowers here instead of throwing dirt and broken bottles?
Makes sense to me. Makes sense, right?
Your neighborhood better. All right. How are these protests making anybody's life better?
Look,
they aren't.
Yeah, look, my audience knows about BLM. My audience knows about Antifa. And the reason that they do is because we talk about them on this show. One of our biggest shows ever, we had Trevor Loudon on. And on that show, we connected the dots to the CCP, to George Soros, to all the Marxist and Maoist intentions that they have. And this is reverse racism. Okay.
It is absolutely.
This is reverse racism that they're employing on America. So we've said back in the civil rights era that, that discrimination was against the law, right? That Black people should vote, that they should be able to be free, that no slavery, the Jim Crow South was wiped away.
Yes.
And here we are now. And now BLM wants to reverse that. They want to make you and I the slave, and they want to make us pay for what happened 300 years ago. Okay? It's nonsense. So we know what they're doing, and Americans are not going to stand for this. That's why you're starting to see people that are defending their businesses, that are defending their area, their home. I'm just telling you, if they keep this up, it's only going to get worse. And that's not just DC. That's across America.
Well, absolutely. But I'm running on local issues. And
I know you are.
And much of what you're talking about, John, is one of the reasons I'm running. We talked about education. We talked about public safety and real criminal justice reform. I've been protesting peacefully to reopen the city quickly, because we are an unusual city because we are largely a service economy. And in my younger days, when I was young and poor, I used to work as a waitress in addition to a number of other jobs. But I really have a special place in my heart for the people who are in the hospitality and in the restaurant industry here. They are hurting. We've lost 100,000 jobs, and of the over 1,000, I think we've got maybe 1,500 or so restaurants with liquor licenses in DC. I see a couple in my neighborhood that have closed.
Yeah.
that just couldn't afford to hang in there. And even some of the larger establishments downtown, I went to a watch party in trendy Adams Morgan the other night, and it was a rather large establishment. And one of the owners said, we're dipping into our pockets to meet payroll. I don't know how long we can hang in there. So we need to reopen the city quickly. We need to reopen our schools, which on a good day are not doing the best job of teaching. So we've talked about that. I'm also trying to get tax breaks for our senior citizens.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of seniors. We've got over 80,000 seniors who live in the District of Columbia, and about half of those, that means about 45,000, are pensioners. And yet the seniors in D.C. who have government pensions do not enjoy the same benefits that seniors in 38 other states and jurisdictions enjoy in terms of sheltering some of their pension income from taxes. Now, we all talk about wanting people to age in place and to be part of the community. And this is a wonderful place to be. I mean, there are so many things to do here. It's such a rich intellectual life. Why would someone want to move away? But if you're going to have the government come in and take your hard-earned pension dollars, well, Delaware is not that far down the road.
No.
So we need to do something about that. We've had a proposal in front of the DC council for over 3 years. I have a friend, Laura Richards, who is part of the commission to restore the pension exclusion for seniors, and they haven't voted on it. And one of my opponents, Mr. Lazare, who is a left-leaning person, actually voted against the pension exclusion for seniors. So you see what side these people are on. I think we need to help our seniors. We need to encourage them to stay, encourage them to be part of the community and contribute to the service economy, which I hope will come back soon.
Yeah. And by the way, our poor senior citizens through this pandemic, they've really paid the price, haven't they? People like Andrew Cuomo up in New York, for instance, look at the death. Look at the death of our senior citizens in assisted living and nursing homes because of his piss poor decisions. Excuse my French. By the way, I know that you're trying to help the homeless population as well as the senior citizens. What's going on with the homeless there?
Well, that's a very good question, John, because it should be what's not going on with the homeless.
Right.
Something that as a citizen and a taxpayer, I have been shocked at is that during a pandemic, a public health emergency, we still have people camping out on the streets. Why has the mayor not done something about this? Okay. And in terms of the election, this is the first year in which our city council has implemented something called the fair election scheme, in which I am not participating. So while I have the platform, I would ask your audience to please go to my website and donate money, because what this fair election scheme is consists of another taxpayer ripoff by allowing candidates for public office to get a 5-to-1 match of funds from the public treasury. Okay, where is it fair? In what world is it fair that I or any other candidate for public office should take taxpayer dollars to fund my campaign when we have people sleeping in the streets? This is just not right. And my competitors who are participating in this ought to be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, and let me say let me say something about that, Marya, because this goes hand in hand with the shutdown. Okay.
Yes.
People like Muriel Bowser, okay, who are the mayor is the mayor of Washington D.C. They don't want the city to open up right now, and the reason that they want that city to stay shut down as long as it can, because people like Bowser believe that the more harm that's inflicted on its residents, that they can blame President Trump. They believe that people are so stupid that they will blame our president. The truth is, it's Muriel Bowser that's keeping Washington D.C. locked down. Right?
Yes, she is. Yes, she is, and she's and you accurately point out, we have a corrupt one-party monopoly here that's been in charge for the last 50 years. I have here a flyer from the Democrat opponent, Mr. White, who says, we need Democrats in office up and down the ticket. Well, we've had Democrats in office in D.C. since the Lyndon Johnson administration, and what have they given us? We have the great-grandchildren of the Great Society living in Section 8 housing.
Right.
62% high school graduation rate. This is not right, and we need to do something about it and really work. So Mayor Bowser and the city council are not working for the interests of the citizens that they claim to love and support, because if they did, they'd be opening up the schools, they'd be opening up the city, they'd be managing well. I can give you another example. There's a little hotel up the street here on Connecticut Avenue, and Mayor Bowser cut a contract with the hotel to house some of the homeless. Okay, and the contract, we FOIA'd the contract, and it says whether the rooms are occupied or not, the city pays the hotel. And our council member, who is a member of the mayor's own party, learned about this from the press. All right, this is how transparent and cooperative the mayor is. And another issue, I mean, just the other day, we've got roadblocks up and down one of the streets in our neighborhood, and our listserv says, what's going on with Yuma Street? Why is this blocked? Well, this is part of the slow streets to stop speeders, et cetera, et cetera. And our neighbors commented, but this has been done without any citizen input. And
that's right. That's right.
Town where the mayor and the city council are implementing actions that are not necessarily they claim they're in the best interest of the citizens, not necessarily, and no citizen input. And this goes across town. As I talk to people all over town, people are upset at the corruption, at the sweetheart deals with developers. That's why my campaign logo is no more business as usual. People are tired of it. There are properties all over town that are being mismanaged, that are being saved for sweetheart deals with developers, that are not serving the interests of the citizens. The Hill East project is a good example. We could go on and on.
Yeah. By the way, that's a great slogan. What's that slogan one more time?
No more business as usual.
No more business as usual. Look, Marya, you bring up an interesting point. This 5-to-1 match deal that they're trying to put together. You're absolutely right. This shouldn't be coming out of taxpayers' pockets. And it's the same with these sweetheart deals. Look, I'm glad that you're pointing this out because it's wrong. It's wrong. And the people need to know about it. And I'll tell you another thing. I cannot wait for a brave citizen in that area who lives there to sue Bowser for allowing them to paint the street with BLM. That is discrimination, and she needs to be sued.
Well, it's grandstanding and virtue signaling when, this is the mayor who doesn't fix potholes, who has parking signage that is confusing at best.
Yeah.
There are so many other uses of that time and resources other than grandstanding and pandering to Marxists who want to destroy our city and our country. This is absolutely wrong. We need to take care of the people at home first. We need to educate our children. We need to help people who are hurting. I continue to be appalled at the fact that we still have people sleeping in tents on the north side of DuPont Circle and in these encampments all over town, and none of these virtue signaling liberals are concerned that they are super spreaders. Well, I'm sorry, you're living in the street in less than sanitary conditions.
That's right.
Why is no one doing something about this? Why have these?
Because they don't care. They don't care. Listen.
That's the only conclusion we can draw, John.
Listen, here's the deal. And this goes back to BLM and the Marxism and the Maoist movement. Okay? And this should prove it to everyone. If they cared, they'd be doing something. Period. Yes. They're not doing something about all these issues that we discussed here today because they don't care. because that's not part of their agenda. Their agenda is to destroy America, to specifically destroy Washington, D.C., to try to make the president look bad, and to institute reverse racism. That's what this is about. Period.
That's very sad. Yes.
They're not going to help the homeless. They're not going to help the seniors. They're going to continue the 5-to-1 match because people there, they believe this nonsense. They've been led down this road that Democrats are just so understanding and so good. And the truth is, someone lied to all these constituents 50 years ago and told them that Democrats should be the ones that people vote for. It's absolute nonsense. People need to listen to what you have to say. And I'm so happy that you came on the show today to let people know.
Well, thank you, John, for having me. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate your letting me put my ideas forward, which I think would serve the citizens of the District of Columbia well.
Absolutely.
When President Lyndon Johnson signed the Great Society legislation, which was supposed to remove urban poverty and urban ills, and it has not done that. It's been a colossal failure. As I said, we have the great-grandchildren of the Great Society living in Section 8 housing. These people should be educated and prosperous and able to contribute to society instead of continuing to be dependent on the nanny state, which is not serving their best interests. So
right.
what I'd like to do is work for the best interests of all citizens of the District of Columbia. I know people are tired of the business as usual. They are tired of the lack of responsiveness from our mayor and our city council. And we need to do something for all of our citizens. So thank you very much for letting.
And by the way, listen, we know what they've tried to do. Okay, this is a racist takeover that they're trying to pull off. It's City Hall. It's, and if you look across not just Washington D.C. but America, it's cities, it's state, it's governors. Everywhere that you see Democrat-run cities and states, you see anarchy now. Okay, and so look, and so Marya, we fully support what you're doing. Fully support getting the word out. And by the way, I want to point everyone to your website, which is below scrolling. And before we go, Marya, do you have any upcoming events that you want to tell anybody about? Things that are happening with your campaign that people can get involved with, show up?
Well, we are starting to have small in-person gatherings. In fact, we've got an event with some immigrants and small business people tomorrow in Ward 5. But because of the challenges of this pandemic, we've become good at Zoom interviews. So a lot of neighborhood associations, the Southwest Neighborhood Association is having Zoom interviews. DuPont Circle East, Chevy Chase Citizens Association. There are a whole bunch of them. I've got them on my board. They send you questionnaires and then they schedule you for interviews. So there are going to be a lot of these. Another group here is called Team Racine, which did interviews with many of us before the primary in June and did a follow-up interview. And they're providing a good service by letting citizens know who the candidates are and what our ideas are. So I would say, reach out to the local citizens associations. We're also going to be taking out ads and making phone calls. We're targeting mailings to some of our supporters and to people who might be interested in positive change in the District of Columbia. So
sure.
And follow us. We, in addition to the website, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So, we try to keep current issues there in front of our citizens. And we really would like to have a better future for the District of Columbia. Thank you.
Yes. And I'll say one other thing, because I've got people running out in Los Angeles against people like Maxine Waters, who we need to get out of there, and other people, Bass. people that are real obstructionists and people that hate this country. But here's what I would say. Everybody that I'm talking to that's a Republican that's running for House or Congress, I mean, Senate or House, they're not letting this virus stop them on their ground game. They're out there knocking on doors. And I'm going to tell you, your ground game, as you know, especially in politics, is always your biggest strength when you're able to talk to people face to face. So regardless of what this I want to call her an idiot, Bowser does or doesn't do not allow her to infiltrate and destroy your ambition and your passion and your campaign.
Thank you. Well, my ambition is to have a better future for all the citizens of the District of Columbia. That's why I'm running. I'm not doing this because I need something else on my resume. I'm doing this because I really care about our city and about the future of our city. And fortunately, I've got a great team of campaign people. We have ward chairs and coordinators in all 8 wards who are helping us out there get out the word and helping us meet with local citizens, distribute literature, and meet appropriately with citizens and engage and listen to the citizens and hear their concerns. And some of what I've talked to you about has been direct feedback from people in the various neighborhoods, because as I've come to learn, I was ward chair here in Ward 3 for 6 years, and each neighborhood has its own character, as we talked about before, and they have their issues and concerns, and that's true across town. I mean, there are some that cover the whole city. Education and public safety is one of them, but then there are neighborhood specific concerns, and I am very happy to be learning from citizens on the ground what those issues are and how we can help with that going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, Marya, I know that area very well. Whenever I come into town for whether it's CPAC or meetings or whatever I'm doing, I know my way around. When I was younger, I used to spend time over at Georgetown. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, like you said, and there's so much to offer. It's just such a shame that you have someone running the city that wants to run it into the ground. And by the way, I've gotten some. I was reading some comments here during the interview. We've been getting some comments, and yes, the police department is wonderful. We just need to remove the handcuffs off of them.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
we want to thank Marya. We want to thank you again for coming on the show. Hope you'll keep us informed about your campaign and let us know how it's going.
Yes.
And to our audience, we just want to thank Marya for coming on. Like I said, get on her website below. If you can and you live in the Baltimore, Virginia, tri-state area there, and you can help her campaign, let Marya know. If you can't and you don't live inside her district or you're too far away, at least donate to her campaign so that she can beat these Democrats. We'll see you next time, America. Thanks for joining us today on Indivisible with John Stubbins. God bless you all.